Before we get started with Gettysburg today, I want to mention a couple things that I do for the video. One of them is normally when the unit is spent, it's turned label side up. Well, I keep all the fresh units label side up and turn them down when they're spent because it looks better in video. The other thing I do when I'm playing Gettysburg, I've played it so many times now, it's really minor. I don't begin with Pleasanton on the map. He didn't arrive till day 3. So on day 2, Buford's by himself, and when Reynolds arrives, Reynolds commands Buford. Also this time now, I'm using the proposed new movement rules where you ignore terrain costs. How battles comes from Kriegspiel, and in Kriegspiel, the Prussian generals said you don't really need to allow for terrain for movement costs. And I'm play testing it, but ultimately I don't think it's going to make that big a difference. We'll see. I, for one, should be very interested to see how this turns out. Enough jibber jabber, let's find out. Gettysburg Pike. Gettysburg Pike is a major road, so he is in column. And the cavalry advances to the northern tip of the McPherson Ridge. And Heth's division comes racing up. They can't quite contact, so they deploy outside of the field of fire. And that's it for turn 1 early morning. Turn 2 mid-morning. Again, the Union's drawn first, and 1st Corps is racing up to meet up with the cavalry. Next, A.P. Hill is drawn and Heth's men press forward. The bags are kept back, of course, and in the combat phase, Buford's cavalry simply falls back. And now it's late morning action. Day 1, there's so few troops on the border that it goes pretty quickly. But by the end of the day, a big chunk of these armies on either side are going to be on the map. Reynolds is drawn first and he fans out, but his bags stay back. And Robinson's division comes on up and comes out of column. A.P. Hill moves his division a little to the right, pulls his bags back to safety, and Pender's division comes on and begins heading around the Union left. Late morning also sees the arrival of Barlow and Skirts. Howard's 11th Corps begins coming on. They're in column. You don't need them, but I use these column markers. There'll be a link in the description to where you can buy them also. $5 for 30 of them, which should be all you need. And now it's turn forward. We see Ewell's division arrive. The first up is Howard's Corps. They begin forming up west of Gettysburg. And Heth charges into the Union left flank. Dretzer's division covers his own left flank, and Pender's division outflanks the Union. Ewell's Corps begins coming on, and now Reynolds realizes he has a real problem. There are rebels everywhere. And of course, with midday, Lee has arrived. Also midday, the rest of Howard's Corps shows up. Reynolds has his whole line fall back. Now with the Pub Battles Orders rules, each Corps commander can give one set of orders. So if I had wanted to, say, attack with Wadsworth and Raleigh on this flank, I would have had to keep Robinson in his flanked position, but I don't want to be throwing away units right now. So with his order, Reynolds just has his corps fall back. When I'm playing two-fisted solo like this, I don't actually write out all the orders. But I do act as if I have written orders, which means I can only write one order per turn. The order this turn was to have these guys fall back. Now ordinarily I'd say they couldn't see these units coming up over here, but this is a very dry day. And they can see the dust clouds kicked up by this long artillery train. So the cavalry rides back over here to check them out. Now it's mid-afternoon. First thing that happens is Early's division arrives. They come right up the road and come out of column when they get too close to the Union troops. They also have a number of detachments that arrive. The detachments are going to fan out to the east and give the appearance of a really huge army. And now no more troops will arrive till after dinner. Seeing the overwhelming superiority of the Confederate forces in front of him, Howard realizes he's going to need to fall back to Cemetery Hill. And Steinwehr gets out of column and moves up onto Culp's Hill. And Rhodes' division hits the Union line. And again, Reynolds has his men give a little ground. And A.P. Hill begins working his way around to the right. And of course there's been light sporadic fire going on all morning and on into the afternoon. But the real battle begins now, as Heth's division drives into Raleigh's division. and the first loss of the day is shown here. And now it's dinner time. Pender's division sweeps in. Heth moves out to guard the flank. Keep an eye on that cavalry. Artillery spot up on top of McPherson Ridge. Reynolds pulls his bags to safety. He pulls his division back to Cemetery Ridge. Howard's 11th Corps secures the good ground. And Ewell swings his corps to the left. Rhodes and Early hit Howard's division. Combat turns 6, and the cavalry just falls back. On Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill, the fighting is hot. And though Skritz's Germans are driven back, they inflict heavy casualties on Early's division. Turn 7, early evening. Reynolds is drawn first. He drives to retake Cemetery Hill and moves his bags way back. Next is A.P. Hill, and he drives on Reynolds' desperate gamble. Moves his artillery up to Seminary Ridge, but he curses Stuart's absence, as Buford's cavalry is an annoyance and he can't focus both divisions fully, his entire corps. He's got to keep a watch on the Union cav. And Ewell's 2nd Corps drives forward. Howard reforms remnants of his division, facing this new threat. Sickles' Corps races up in the center, and what a very welcome sight Sickles' 12th Corps is. Just in time. They have a number of detachments spread out to increase the appearance of the size of the force that's coming in. And now the combat on the hill. With overwhelming force and heavy losses, Reynolds' 1st Corps is driven from the hill. And I almost forgot to bring on the rest of Ewell and Hill's Corps. Seeing potential for a bottleneck because they come off the road to a minor road, Lee just has them get off the road, so that Johnson's division can race on in and fortify the rest of Ewell's corps. I move Ewell within command range of Lee so that if Ewell needs to make a command roll to jump ahead and get these guys moving before Longstreet comes on here at the end of the day, and he fails, Lee can try it too, can support him. So here we are, last action of the day. Sickles is drawn first and he occupies Cemetery Ridge and the Round Tops. No chance of him occupying forward ground. There's already rebels there. Hill turns and presses in the center while guarding his flank. Anderson's division races forward. Reynolds sends word to Slocum to swing around towards the Confederate left. Not being able to be in two places at once, Ewell can't order the attack he wants to order, so he merely refuses his left flank. And Lee begins splitting his army in two. 2nd Corps over here on his left, 3rd Corps over on his right. Using the break in the Confederate attack in his positions, Howard straightens his line. Longstreet's corps arrives to drive a hammer right through the center of the Union line. And east of Cemetery Hill, Reynolds and Wisconsin's Iron Brigade try to hold one last time. And they do. Wadsworth Division holds. And Pender's and Birney's divisions hammered out on Cemetery Ridge. But A.P. Hill's corps is far too exhausted. The men collapse. And again, Buford's cavalry fall back. All day long they've held the Union left. So ends day 1. And at the end of the day, the Union player faces some tough questions. Can he hold? They feel they've been getting a trickle of reinforcements all day long, and the South seems to have got a whole lot of people coming in right away. But at the end of the day, both Ewell and A.P. Hill's corps were fought to a standstill. They held this. The North has held. They're going to try. They're going to try and hold. If they can hold out long enough, they'll eventually have the larger army. Let's do this night turn. Sickles' corps holds right where it is. A.P. Hill unpacks bags, rallies his divisions. Anderson's division comes forward. He puts his artillery in the peach orchard. Howard's corps holds. Ewell unpacks bags. Longstreet brings up his corps. Slocum's corps takes positions. And Meade and Hancock arrive. And then the big Union artillery train shows up. Notably, the Union still hasn't unpacked bags. They're still not sure they're gonna stay. And the sun rises on July 2nd, a new day dawning. And here we begin with July 2nd. Yesterday started with merely 2 corps. Now we have fully 10 corps. The meeting engagement is met. Seeing the Unions only getting stronger, A.P. Hill opens with an assault early in the morning. Anderson breaks through Sickles' stretched out line and hits Hancock's column. And then Longstreet surges forward. Leading the drive are Hood's Texans. Hancock manages the chaos and plugs a hole with Gibbon's division. and the Union artillery begins strengthening the line. And Ewell's corps surges forward. They know this early morning drive is their best chance. And Ewell's artillery opens up on Slocum's corps. Not without effect. And the appearance of Sykes' 5th Corps coming up the Baltimore Pike is a welcome sight for General Meade. Reynolds' 1st Corps holds up Hood's drive, and then his division falls back. And the day's combat starting on the Confederate left. Howard's men fall back. And then Rhodes' division hits the other side of Howard's corps. How does Steinwehr's Germans handle it? They hold them up and then fall back. Let us see what A.P. Hill can accomplish. Over on the Round Top. It's bloody and desperate fighting on Cemetery Ridge, and no one is in control. And on the Round Tops. The Round Tops are cleared, but at a heavy cost. And again the cavalry fade away. As the Union general, I'm very cautious with Buford's cavalry, because when the rest of Pleasanton's cavalry shows up and Stuart's cavalry shows up, it'll be 3 blocks on 3 blocks, and the southern blocks are elite. So they'll need everybody. I have to preserve Buford's cavalry. It's mid-morning, and Lee's early morning assault, while effective, was far too costly. Let us see what the day brings. Howard's corps cautiously holds the line. He has a bunch of light skirmishing troops out front. Sickles' men recover as they form up around the bags. Meanwhile, Hancock retakes the Round Tops and positions himself on Cemetery Ridge. Longstreet presses forward. He places his artillery on Cemetery Hill. And Ewell presses ahead. As the artillery fires on the stretched out Union troops, driving them back. Union artillery is occupying the extreme Union right, and Sykes' 5th Corps forms up. The remnants of Hill's 3rd Corps occupy the Peach Orchard and Devil's Den and continue to push back the Union cavalry. And now 1st and 2nd Corps continue their drive in the mid-morning. With heavy losses, Slocum's corps holds, as Ewell's men are driven back. And Howard's men hold, just barely, and they drive back Ewell's attack. Longstreet's drive in the center. Hood's Texans continue to press forward. The Union center is thrown into confusion. Now in late morning, and Sickles recovers his corps. Sykes' 5th Corps is drawn next, but Longstreet's going to try and jump ahead. And they fail. But Lee is going to try to roll again. Success. So now Longstreet's going first. But can Sykes go first? Yes. Sykes counterattacks in the center. Longstreet pushes through the break in the Union line. Quick-thinking Hancock grabs Gibbon's division, including the 1st Minnesota, and says, grab those flags. Capture those colors. And Ewell's corps begins making use of the baggage train. And his artillery opens up on the approaching Union artillery, scattering half of it. The other half fires back. And his artillery must also fade back for cover. And in the center, some of the artillery recovers, some of it is pulled to safety. A.P. Hill tightens up the right flank. The Union has deployed bags. The center is recovering. Now we have late morning combat in the center. Sykes' Corps with a drive on Hood's Texans. Sykes' attack was perhaps a little too hastily prepared. It fails, and the routing troops turn the entire Union center into confusion. Hancock's attack on McLaws here in the center. And now it's midday. The troops on both sides could use a rest, but the South feels they're so close. And the midday action begins. Sykes' Corps falls back to recover. Advantage Longstreet, and he presses the attack. Hancock forms up on the Round Tops. Now here's something the rules don't specify. The artillery was here. This is all routing confusion, and Longstreet attacked. And so they retreat. Now if all these have already moved, there's no combat here. And that's how that would end. But I think that's wrong. Hood's men are driving forward. And this is kind of a critical thing with pub battles. The rules are pretty brief and straightforward. And oftentimes you're asked, what do you think would happen? Well, this is what I think would happen here. And that kind of freedom avoids any kind of rulesy, gamey interpretations of the situation. You just look and say, what do you think would happen? And Ewell does what he can to keep the pressure up. Pulls the spent troops back so they can recover. His artillery is close enough to the bag so they recover. And the detachments hide behind some ridges. Reynolds would like to recover his remaining division. They're right next to the bags, but they're also within a third of enemy troops. There's no rally here. And here, would Slocum's Corps pardon that juicy flank attack? The trouble is, they don't know what the Confederate has out on this side, so joining in that attack could get them into trouble. I'm gonna roll 1, 2, or 3, they make the attack. A 5. Nope, they're saying we're gonna play this smartly. We're gonna maintain a line. And that's how I do a double-blind solo. Ewell's exhausted troops attack Howard's exhausted troops. Ewell's drive is stopped, but at a cost. In the center, Hood keeps pressing. The bags are right there in front of him. And Hood's attack is finally driven back. But what now? Past midday, it's now mid-afternoon. The Union bags are exposed right there in the center, but they're not really exposed because Sickles' 3rd Corps is now refreshed and ready to defend. The question is, who will get there first? And one of the new rules that's coming out in 4th edition used to be in this case, if the Confederacy could contact those bags, they were captured. But in the new rules, if you have a friendly unit contacting those bags, that friendly unit has to be eliminated before the bags are exposed. So even if you attack over here, as long as there's a friendly unit defending it, the bags are defended. No more easy pickup. Mid-afternoon and this is intense. Reynolds' 1st Division is drawn first and they charge. A desperate attempt to keep the bags at arm's length. Once again, Lee is calling for one last effort. And A.P. Hill's men charge forward. Sykes sends Ayres' division to support the attack in the center. Ewell drives forward for one last effort. How many last efforts can there be? Desperate times. Sickles strengthens the line. The artillery fires at A.P. Hill's approaching troops, driving the lead troops off. This time, does Slocum do a flank attack? A 2. Yes, he does. Longstreet has one fresh division, and he sends it towards the bags. And now the confused fighting in the afternoon. We start with Ewell's drive on the Confederate left. Ewell's exhausted men on the right get driven back by a detachment of Union troops. And now the Union attack in the center. Longstreet wonders if Hood's Texans can hold just a little longer. The desperate attack was driven back, but there is nothing left. Now Longstreet's drive on the bags. McLaw's division drives hard, and Birney's division defends as best it can. The bags are saved, but the cost to both sides has been incredible. Now A.P. Hill's final drive. More desperate fighting, and the South breaks. They break with 10 losses, but they lost 5 blocks in the last turn. The Union also paid heavily. That was intense. That was a very good game. And you know, to be honest, it was games like this that got me to start this YouTube channel. It was just so cool the way it played out, and I wanted to show it. I'm going, what? Someone's got to see what an amazing thing this was. This was so cool. So anyway, thank you for watching, and please, like and subscribe.